The cold steel handcuffs snapped around Jordan Carter's wrists as two officers shoved him hard against their squad car. His black security vest, marked in big white letters, flapped in the wind. One officer sneered and said, "Shoulda thought twice before playing dress-up, pal." Jordan stared straight at him, calm and steady. "You have no idea who you just arrested." A police radio crackled nearby. Something big was coming through. But it was already too late. That one moment, that one mistake, was about to turn their world upside down. In just a few hours, their smirks would vanish, and their lives would fall apart. But none of them knew it yet, not even Jordan. All they saw was a black man in a vest. Hours later, the police station was a total mess. Phones wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters crowded outside shouting questions. Inside, the same officers who had arrested Jordan Carter sat frozen at their desks, staring at the news on a nearby screen. A bright headline flashed: "Federal agent wrongfully detained. Police department under investigation." One officer leaned over and whispered, "We're done for." Fear filled the room. No one moved. No one spoke. All they could do was sit there and replay what had happened. How they ignored Jordan's words. How they never even looked at his ID. They had no idea who he was, and now the entire country did. Jordan wasn't just some guy in a vest. He was a federal agent, and they had made a huge mistake. Their smirks were gone. In just a few hours, everything had changed, and this was only the beginning. Jordan Carter wasn't just a security guard. He was a federal agent, deep undercover, working for the FBI on a secret mission. For months, he had been tracking a dangerous trafficking ring near the city's downtown area. His black vest wasn't fake. It was part of his cover, carefully designed to blend in. Every move he made had to be perfect. One slip, and the whole operation could fall apart. He had earned the trust of people no one else could get close to. But all that work was nearly destroyed in seconds because two cops didn't stop to ask questions. To Officers Riggs and Delaney, he was just another black man standing outside a closed store. They didn't know who he really was or what was at stake. Jordan had spent months building this case. Now, thanks to their reckless actions, everything he worked for was on the edge of collapse. It all started with a simple call. Someone had reported a suspicious man standing near a closed shop downtown. But Jordan Carter wasn't just standing around. He was watching a secret meetup linked to the trafficking ring he'd been tracking for months. It was supposed to be quiet surveillance. But then, the squad car pulled up fast. Officers Riggs and Delaney jumped out, guns drawn. Jordan didn't even get a chance to speak. He slowly reached for his badge, but Riggs yelled, "Don't move, you match a description." Jordan stayed calm, trying to explain. "Check my ID, call my supervisor." But Delaney just laughed. "Yeah, we'll get to that, after booking you." Jordan felt it. His cover was blown. Everything he had worked for was in danger. But he wasn't out of options. As soon as they cuffed him, he knew he had to use his one call wisely. One call could turn the whole thing around. He just had to wait for the right moment. What the officers didn't know was that they weren't dealing with a fake. They were dealing with someone who had the power to change everything. When Jordan Carter sat down in the station, he didn't ask for a lawyer. Instead, he used his one phone call to contact someone powerful. Assistant Director Cole from the FBI. The officers nearby didn't think much of it. But within minutes, everything changed. Black SUVs pulled up outside. Federal agents rushed in. And then came Cole, storming through the doors with fire in his eyes. He held up Jordan's real credentials. "You just arrested one of my agents," he said sharply. Officers Riggs and Delaney went pale. Their smirks disappeared in seconds. They hadn't just made a mistake. They had destroyed a major federal case. 6 months of undercover work was now at risk. The whole room went silent. Jordan watched them, his face calm. He had warned them. Now they were about to face the consequences, and this was just the beginning of their problems. Right after Assistant Director Cole exposed the truth, the fallout began. Internal Affairs was called in right away. The trafficking suspects Jordan had been watching were already gone, spooked by the sudden chaos. The operation was ruined. Months of planning wasted in seconds. And it was all because Officers Riggs and Delaney hadn't listened. But now the tables had turned. Jordan wasn't the one being questioned anymore. He sat across from the two officers in the interrogation room. Only this time he wasn't the suspect. He was the one in control. His calm voice cut through the tension. "You had one job," he said, locking eyes with Riggs. Delaney looked down, ashamed. "We didn't know," he muttered. Jordan didn't blink. That's the problem. The room stayed silent, but the message was loud and clear. The officers weren't in charge anymore. Their careers were hanging by a thread. Jordan didn't stop there. He slid a thick file across the table toward Riggs and Delaney. Inside were pages of their disciplinary records, past complaints, use of force incidents, and ignored warnings. It wasn't just one mistake, this was a pattern, and now the truth was on paper. He leaned forward, his voice sharp but steady. "Now, let's talk about accountability." Riggs swallowed hard. Delaney's face went pale. They had thought this would blow over. They never imagined their own records would be used against them. But Jordan had done his homework. The same way he built his undercover case, he had gathered everything he needed to expose them. This wasn't just about a bad arrest anymore. It was about a broken system and two officers who had been part of the problem for far too long. The fallout hit fast. Officer Riggs's wife called the station, yelling that reporters were outside their home. News vans crowded their street, flashing cameras and shouting questions. At the same time, Delaney's partner quietly walked into the station and turned in his badge. He didn't want to be linked to the mess. He said, "I can't be part of this anymore." The police department scrambled to save its image. Within hours, both Riggs and Delaney were suspended. Termination was already in motion. Their names were on every news channel, not as heroes, but as examples of what happens when power is misused. Jordan didn't celebrate. He watched from a distance, jaw tight. His mission was ruined, but theirs? It was completely destroyed. At the press conference, Jordan Carter stood beside Assistant Director Cole. Flashing cameras lit up the room. Reporters shouted questions, but Cole stayed firm. "We take police misconduct seriously," he said, "and we protect our own." Jordan didn't need to say anything. His presence said it all. He had survived being arrested by the very people meant to serve and protect. And now, those same officers were nowhere near the spotlight. Riggs and Delaney stood in the back of the room, no longer in uniform, no longer respected. Their faces were tight with anger and regret. Jordan met their eyes one last time. No words were exchanged. None were needed. The truth had come out, and justice had been served in front of the whole world. For Jordan, the case was over. But the damage they caused, the lives they hurt, would not be forgotten anytime soon. A few weeks later, Jordan Carter got a new assignment. The trafficking ring had scattered, but the mission wasn't over. He suited up again, his black vest now more than just a disguise. It was a symbol of everything he'd been through. As he tightened the straps and looked in the mirror, he turned to the news. There it was. Riggs and Delaney had lost their pensions and were facing lawsuits. Their faces once filled with pride, now marked by shame. Jordan took a deep breath. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate, but deep down he knew they made their choices, and so did he. His job wasn't just to fight crime, it was to stand for justice, no matter the cost.